Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of bluegrass. You've enjoyed live bluegrass at Guitar Town CT concerts in Hampton, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hall, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. So my guest today on Got Grass is Jerry Douglas. Welcome to Got Grass, Jerry.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. You're telling me some of my buddies have been on here lately.
Yeah, it just so happened that lately a lot of your buddies have been on, and it's been fun talking. But I've never met you before. You've never played up here at Guitar Town, so I'm glad to finally say hello and kind of in person.
Well, I hope to get up there sometime. I'm going to be in the area later on this month. I'll be up in that area, but not going to make Guitar Town this time either, I guess.
Oh, sometime down the road. Anyway, my first question is always the same. And the question is, how would you spend your day if you had nothing to do and no instruments around?
Oh, I'd be very nervous pacing. I'd spend it pacing and sitting in one place for a little while and then moving and sitting in another place for a while. I don't think I could. That sounds terrible. I could, if I had a book, I'd be okay. I guess, I need to think about this in another way. It's not life or death if there's an instrument there, but it sure does help.
More like what do you do on a day off, I guess would be a better way to phrase it, rather than, I know Michael Cleveland said, well, I always play. I'm never not playing an instrument. I just don't know what to do without an instrument in my hand. And I said, okay, well, that's a good answer.
Yeah. I'm that guy is a piece of work. But if I didn't have any instruments around and I just had a day, on a normal day off, I would maybe try to go fishing.
It's good. Sounds relaxing.
It is.
Yeah. I used to do a lot.
I'm a fly fisherman, so there's nothing quite as zen as standing in the middle of a stream up to your waist and in water and being completely dry.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a weird feeling, right? When the water's rushing around you and you can't feel it.
Yeah. You don't even, it's like you don't exist. You don't matter to the water at all. Yeah.
Just another obstruction, I guess, in the way.
Yeah. Obstacle.
Everybody knows who you are, but could you just introduce yourself to our listeners, a little bio for those who might not know your backstory completely?
Sure.
Okay.
My name is Jerry Douglas. I'm from northeastern Ohio, Warren, Ohio. And I started I play the Dobro guitar and or resophonic guitar, whatever you want to call it. I don't think there's anybody's going to care which way you go with that anymore. But I started playing it when I was about 10 or 11 years old and wanted to play it, for a couple of years before that, but just didn't have the right equipment. And but I'd seen Flatt Scruggs play live with Josh Graves and the whole band, and it just it took me. I got the bug real bad. My father was a bluegrass guitar player and a singer and had a band, and I get to watch those guys rehearse and figure out arrangements and stuff like that. When I was 5 years old, I was watching these guys figure out how to arrange a bluegrass song, and to me that was not something a 5-year-old or 6-year-old kid should care about at all, but I was soaking it in, and it paid off later on. But those guys were really great musicians, and they all worked in the steel mills up there in that area, and they were great musicians. Actually met the granddaughter of one of them the other day on an airplane. I got on an airplane and she said, "Are you Jerry Douglas?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Dave Clark was my grandfather." I went, "Whoa, he was great." I loved.
Wow.
He was one of the greatest parts of the band, of my dad's band. And so things like that still happen. But but those guys could have told me to get lost, but they didn't. They were real helpful, and then I've gotten really lucky, been in the right place at the right time, a lot of the times, and got to play with some of the most amazing musicians, that have walked the earth, and consider myself really lucky. And being here now at this time in the world, and getting to hear, getting to be in a band with Tony Rice and Ricky Skaggs and JD Crowe and Bobby Sloan, and making that record and remembering all the things that went into that, all the funny stuff that happened in the studio, all those things, that get jammed up in your head there, that only come out if you start talking about a particular thing. And so I won't labor on them right now, but just, I've been so lucky to, and been able to back up great vocalists like Alison, Krauss, and Dan Tomitsky, and Tony Rice and Ricky Skaggs and Dolly Parton, and you go down a list, and some of them I've played with, but I don't know. It's been a really musical, been a crazy, crazy trip, but a very musical one,
Oh,
and I've liked it all. I've enjoyed it all, and
um,
I'm not finished.
oh, okay. All right.
I'm finished speaking, but I'm not finished making
Oh,
music.
I see what you're saying. Okay, good. Yeah,
Sounded like a retirement speech or something.
I'm done.
Yeah.
And thank you very much, and I'll see you later.
Yeah, well, the checks should start arriving any day. Yeah.
So, I guess bluegrass was big in your life starting as a kid, and that was the music you heard.
Yeah, I
Right.
heard Flat and Scruggs every morning, uh, either on the radio from Nashville, or if the weather was bad, there was a record on the turntable. So I had Flat and Scruggs for breakfast instead of Bill Monroe, and it really had an effect on my life,
Yeah.
career, what I do.
Could you describe what it is about bluegrass that you love so much? Could you put that into words, or is it?
Yeah. I love that it evolved from, a bunch of people sitting on a porch or sitting in a field, or with acoustic instruments, pouring out their feelings, and you know and the same with the evolution of the instruments, how people learn to manipulate the guitar strings and make them go from Riley Puckett to to Clarence White to Tony Rice, and from Tony on to, thousands and thousands of guitar players who want to be Tony Rice, who want to be his guitar player, Tony Rice.
So I guess your first Dobro hero would have been Josh Graves that you heard with Flat and Scruggs, and
Mhm.
the sound of that just was like too much for you.
That was it. Yeah, the thing about it was he could play. He injected this blues thing into their music that they didn't have otherwise, because that's just where he came from. He grew up playing just slidey, crazy blues, and that was just in him. And no matter what he did, but he played with. There were some things that Josh Graves cut with Wilma Lee and Stoney Cooper in around 1962, 64, in there somewhere, that are the most amazing, that are the best Josh Graves performances on record. They're not, I mean, the stuff with Flat and Scruggs is great, but there's the stuff. I was in a park called Ponderosa Park in Salem, Ohio, when I was a kid. My dad would play out, his band would play out there, and I entered a talent contest there one time, and won, and got $5 from Tex Ritter.
Oh,
All I remember was him reaching down and the smell of whiskey. That's but
yeah.
oh man. But yeah, but Wilmley and Stony Cooper were playing there that weekend, and Wilmley gave me this record. She saw me play with my dad's band, so I was a dobro player, and she kind of had a soft spot, and she always had a dobro player in her band. And I think she saw something, maybe that, there was something happening there with me as a dobro player, or that being that young, and gave me a record that they had out, and it had it had a dobro shot, either Shot Jackson, Bill Carver, or Josh Graves on different cuts on the record. And the ones with Josh Graves were just stood out, just so, the hair would come up on the back of your neck. I mean, it's just so good, so scary. He could emote such great feelings. He could bring them about. That's the mark of a great musician, I think, is who can uh, who can move a person, from one mood to another. You know but just by playing, just
Mm.
by what notes they put in order, in what order to make you feel a certain way. And that's what he did to me. And that's and I got to know him later on in his life, in my life, and come down here to Nashville and moved down here. And uh because I met him when I was 13, and the last thing he said to me was, "I'll see you again, kid." That's how he put it. And then
Yeah.
well, next time we met, we were both out on the road playing at the same festival or whatever it was. And just knowing him, my hero, my icon, it was amazing. It's something you just don't get to do. And I interviewed him for the Hall of Fame, Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame. And he was a funny guy. He was a comedian on stage, but he was just a comedian in life as well.
Yeah. Do you have a specific memory where you thought to yourself that this is what you want to do the rest of your life? Did something just click, or was it always just going to be music no matter what for you?
No, well, I didn't think it was going to be music. I thought, I need to get a real job, because I lived in a world where you had a real job. You worked in a mill, you worked in some kind of trickle down automotive industry. But and it was just, you had a job. It was straight the era, people coming straight out of the 50s and 60s. They were all, I mean, it's when this country was the most, it was the best time in the world to raise a family. It was the best time in the world. Everybody had a job. There were two chickens in every pot, and it was just you know, a really different time. And I didn't think, I always thought I needed a job. And then I thought, well, no, I need to go to college when I get out of school. So I did pretty well in school. So I thought, I'm going to go on to college and become I either wanted to be a history, something to do with history, with maps, or English, the language. And that's what I really thought I was going to do. And then the country gentleman found me and changed everything uh, for me. And I looked up, and I was standing on stage playing with my dad's band. I looked up, and Charlie Waller was standing over to the left, and Bill Yates was out and way out in the middle, and Doyle Lawson and Bill Emerson. They were all just kind of scattered around. It was like being scouted for a baseball team. And it was and they wanted me to leave that night and go on the road, just leave and go with them. And I said, I've just finished I'm a junior in high school. I really can't, I don't think I could do that.
Yeah.
And but I went out with them the next summer between my junior and senior years of high school. I went on the road, and sealed that sealed my fate, I think. And when I saw how happy people can be uh, playing music, and how happy you can make people by playing music, I think, and it seemed easy for me to be on stage. And I was pretty shy at first, the first couple of years, but I've certainly gotten over that. But uh it was then I think that struck me that this is what you need to do. This is what you want to do, and give this a shot.
Yeah. I want to get into a little bit of you're playing with Tony Rice for a while here. Tony was always my musical hero, like he is to a lot of people. He played up here 4 times at Guitar Town. I've considered myself so lucky to have met him and had a little chance to chat with him quite a few times. Everyone I've interviewed for this podcast, and I think you're the 22nd one we've had, either played with Tony or wish they had played with Tony Rice.
Mhm.
I know you started playing with him when you were pretty young, right? Can you talk a little bit about how you first met him or how he first met you?
Well, we met through I'm trying to think of the first time I saw Tony play was probably at a festival in Morrow, Ohio. And it was late in the year, and I was there with the Country Gentlemen, and Tony was there with JD and Larry and Bobby. And Ricky Skaggs was in the band with me in the Country Gentlemen. And he introduced me to Tony. And then the next time I saw Tony, I played on some of his record, California Autumn, that he was cutting. And Mike Aldrich was playing on the record too, but then I came in and played on a couple of songs. It was in DC and at a studio, at the same studio where we cut 0044. And there were a lot of people around. Lowell George was around, and George Massenburg had a studio up there that was on a barge in Chesapeake Bay that eventually sunk. And DC was a happening place.
Yeah,
A lot of
right.
musicians passing through, and Tony was up there to record, so I went over and played on that on his stuff, and then you know, then it started happening more frequently that we'd record together. So uh, when Ricky left the Country Gentleman and went to JD Crowe, it wasn't long after that, and I did too, and then you know when Tony moved to California is when we really started to record, with David Grisman and all of those fellows, Daryl and everybody, and Todd, Bill Matnick. And it was just a different kind of music, led me down. Tony's led me down some pretty crazy paths.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And but we were best friends, I mean, brothers, when as soon as I got to Lexington, Kentucky, and Tony and Ricky and I all lived in the same apartment complex. And I would wait until Tony would wake up. I was 18, 19 years old, and I'd wait till Tony woke up about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, to start his day.
Yeah.
And I'd go over and hang out and have breakfast with Tony about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then later on that evening, we'd go play at the Holiday Inn, and go play for a while. And but then the band toured that summer that I was that I joined the band with Tony and
Right.
JD, and went to Japan and did all kinds of things. And before Tony took off and Ricky and I started Boone Creek, that was a long time ago, and a lot happened really fast. But
Yeah.
it was exciting to be there. I remember going to one of the rehearsals when we were there with JD, and we were either coming back or going to Japan. I went to a Grissman rehearsal of the first quintet, and just they were rehearsing a song Thailand, and I just couldn't believe it. I had never heard anything like this music.
Hmm.
I was wondering how do they know to how do they make this big one giant beautiful sound, with all these guys. It's all spread out, and so much of it was Tony and the way he was playing guitar behind it, because it was unique, it was brand new, all
Yeah.
totally new.
I was talking to Todd Phillips about those early years in California, and it just sounded like a bunch of young guys really having the times of their lives, playing music all afternoon and all night, listening to jazz all night, and then, sleeping late. And same thing next day. That's what he said. It was just
Yeah.
constant music and fun.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened when I would go out there. I finally figured out that you needed to go out a couple of days early to get used to Grisman's pot because you couldn't imbibe in any of that stuff and not just curl up in a ball, you know. So uh, I'd get out there a little bit early and go hang out with David for a while and get acclimated, and then we'd get in the studio and record. And yeah, we were just having a ball. We'd play. I'd go to Tony's house and stay at Tony's, and Tony just and I would just sit up all night long and listen to Miles Davis and Eric Dolphy and Coltrane and just he had this pair of really great old JBL speakers,
Mhm.
and they just sounded so good. I'd love to have a pair of those speakers. I don't know if they sound as good as I remember, but my, that it was such an education, at the same time.
Yeah,
That's what it was. That's what it
yeah.
really.
Everyone I've spoken to that ever played with Tony Rice said that he just brought out the best in you. I guess people have said you didn't want to disappoint him or whatever. It was just like everybody always played their very best without even thinking about it with him. Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, I would. I would say that. Yeah, he was like, and I said it in a Matnick's book of that Tony playing with Tony was like standing in the middle of a tornado. You know, there's it's so calm there, but they're all around you. I mean, he's like in and out of every little hole, every little crevasse, that you leave open. Tony pops through there. It's like, and when you do that, when you pair that with Sam Bush's chop, you got this. Oh my! It's like driving a truck through,
Mhm.
a, a tree, and it's but Tony did bring out the best in you because you did want to please him. You did. There was a thing about it. You wanted to rise to his level. I mean, everybody knew he was like the greatest guitar player we were going to see for a long, long time. And so you wanted to perform your best, and you didn't even really think of it that way. He was just in your face or in your ears and pulling things out of you that you didn't know were there, sending you in directions that you hadn't planned on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Somebody.
loved it because I loved getting myself. He would send me into a corner, and then I'd have to find my way out of it.
Huh. Yeah.
It
Wow.
was, it was, it wasn't like, third string, fourth string, anything like that. We weren't thinking in those terms. We were more painting and playing off of sounds that we heard than we were trying to uh we were talking. It was a discussion, it was a conversation we were all having together.
Right.
That's how it felt. It wasn't like, okay, I got to play this note because he just played that note. It wasn't that. It was a whole direction, it was like a river.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt about it. And even the last time I played with him, I heard him kick in. I heard his rhythm kick in way down the line from me. And I thought, damn, there's Tony. There's Tony. It was the night he was inducted into the Hall of Fame when he came up and strapped on his guitar because Wyatt had already kicked off the song, and and he said, "Oh, he's going to play. He's going to play." I said, "Yeah, looks like he's going to play." And then all of a sudden, we're in like the first verse of the song, and I heard Tony's rhythm, and it was just like it's just it was it's like he never left. You know, he just had this sound. It was just like him signing his name. when he would play, it was he speaking, and he was amazing, amazing
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
Never be another one.
I listened to your Dobro playing with Tony, especially on the Manzanita album, and it was just the most bluesy sound I've ever heard, I think, before or since. I don't know if it was just the energy or the recording or you or the Dobro, but it was just that it just cut through everything in a style I'd never heard before or probably since. I don't know. Do you remember that, all that recording and how that happened?
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
we were in a studio in Berkeley,
Mhm.
uh, and we cut the first stuff we cut upstairs because the guy that owned the place had a violin and he was having trouble hearing, so he had had this room reinforced to really bring out this violin, and and it was good for violins, but not for the rest of us. So we all moved downstairs after that in this place. But uh, yeah, Ricky was in L.A. working on the Emmylou Dolly Linda Ronstadt record, and so we started the record with Todd and and Sam and Tony and I, just the four of us. I
Right.
think that, and then Ricky overdubbed some things that we left holes for, but we knew he was going to be coming in later than us, so it was sort of tag team a little bit. But it was the first record of its kind that didn't have banjo, and I kind of filled that role, and had it was more bluesy. That's probably why it had more blues at first, because you didn't have the pistons of the banjo, just subdividing it in that way. So
Right.
I wasn't really dividing it. I was smearing it all together. But it was really fun. I loved playing the tunes, learning the tunes. And that was early on for me to be attempting that at that bar. And I I'm glad, I would play it differently now, but that's just because I've played a lot more music since then. So that's, I hadn't, and up to that point, that was a challenge for me.
Yeah. I was talking to Todd about his bass playing and how it had changed, and he said, when I listened back to those old records and how I was playing so many notes, he said, now I just try to play the right notes.
Oh, Todd was great then. Todd and I were running buddies, and Todd had a run in with it. He had a Valiant, this little car, this Valiant, and he had taken the front passenger seat out of it, and so he could put his bass in there because it wasn't a very big car. And
I
then he
remember them.
then he hit the corner of I think the Richmond Bridge or something out there, and just killed his bass, and he had to put it all back, but he put it all back together. And that bass and Todd are inseparable. I mean, they'll both go together. It's been with him forever, and it's just one of those instruments that sounds so good. When I hear it, I immediately can place it. It's one of those things. I mean, hearing it on Tony's records, and I have a cassette machine that I fired up a while ago to see if it still worked, and uh, I had a cassette of Native American.
All right.
Put that in there, and it sounds so good. And that's Shats, mostly Shats, and
Right.
but that's I think that's my favorite Tony record, uh, Native American.
Yeah.
That's my favorite one that I've got to play on, and I played on most of them.
Do
So,
you still have the dobro that you played on, or are you constantly changing instruments and trying to find different sounds, or do you keep
I
one?
change instruments a lot, but I still have that guitar,
Do you?
and yeah, I still have all of them.
Yeah.
Some of them are in museums. The Musical Instrument Museum in Scottsdale, Phoenix, has one of my guitars, and Country Music Hall of Fame's got a couple, and they're scattered around. It's good to it's good. I know they're taken care of, and if I'm not playing them, they're being well taken care of.
Right. You're talking about your approach to playing now versus then. So how has your approach to playing the dobro changed over your career? Do you look at music differently now on the dobro?
I do. I've I've played in so many situations and genres now that I've had to advance my music theory, and know what sounds good with what, because in dobro you're not you hardly ever play a full chord, a full like 6 note chord. You're playing 3 notes, 4 notes, 2 notes, and filling out the chord, and a lot of it's illusion. But I think, that's the one way I've changed my way of thinking. It wasn't just, okay, you got to play it or you got to hammer this note like it because Josh would have or Mike Aldridge would have played it this way. I sort of fell in a path of Josh, Mike Aldridge, and then I started, playing more. And I I don't know. I don't play as many notes now either as I did back then. And I wonder how we did it. It was it's pretty it's young us, playing those things. But I like the old instruments, and I like playing them, but the new ones, the guitar that I play now is a hybrid, and it has so many different voices that I can find that voice, that Manzanita voice with the guitar that I play now, but it's got so much more low end, and it's so much bigger sounding. And I miss that sometimes. I miss it, when I started the Earls of Leicester. I tried using my normal guitar, and it just sounded wrong. It was wrong. I needed an old dobro to get that sound, to make it sound that way. And everybody in the band is playing a vintage instrument, and it's sort of like they've had to live that long to make that sound, you know.
Interesting. I've been listening a lot lately to your recording of While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which is I was thinking all the beautiful Beatles songs. How did you happen to choose that to do? Just melody?
It just fell into my lap one day. I just started playing it, and I thought, I've been heard this song all my life, and I've never tried to play it, and it's just one of those songs. It's like, why would you play New York, New York? It's like, but I started playing it, and it just laid so nice and naturally for the dobro, to play it out of A minor for me was a good place to go. And it all just voiced out right. And I've always loved the song anyway, and just, guess waited until I thought I had a version that George Harrison might like and a band to play it with.
Yeah. It's one of those songs that I think you can't really do wrong if you play the melody well.
Yes.
It's a beautiful melody, and I noticed in one of the recordings, your guitar player is a pretty awesome player, and he takes off on it,
Yeah.
completely in a different direction than you. But yeah, it's interesting how different musicians look at the same song and find totally different stuff to do with it.
No, yeah, his knowledge base, and because he's playing an instrument, that's been played on that song so much, he could just go ahead and play the melody, and he could play the melody so beautiful you wouldn't believe how beautiful he could play the melody. I mean, he's such a great guitar player. But he kind of ripped that one. But it was time for somebody to do that, It was for us, it was time for somebody to just go ahead and step out and rip it, and then we can pull it back in again.
Oh.
It was more of a dynamic shift
Hmm.
than than a look what I can do.
No, it's great. I mean, it's a beautiful version of the song, not what one would expect necessarily, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
really good.
Well, yeah, we could have played it exactly like everybody else, but we
Yeah.
couldn't. We couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Not this band. I mean, and this record that I'm putting it out now because I really love the sound of this combination of instruments so much, and a lot of the songs on the record a couple of them are I cut so long ago that when I cut the song, I did not know the song, I just kind of made it up. And then we went in the studio and recorded it. It was just difficult, at the
Yeah.
time. And now it's
Mm.
not as difficult for me. And I have these other fellows that are playing it who have played it for 8 years with me now and some of these songs and we've fleshed them out and we know them. And I really wanted to capture those songs the way they are now, and plus putting things on there like My Guitar Gently Weeps was it's just a I want people to be able to leave uh if they buy that record, they'll feel like they've been to the show.
Yeah.
That's how I wanted the record to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and they're long versions of the songs. So they're kind of hard to play on the radio for if you want a 3 minute 14-second song, probably isn't one on there.
Right. Yeah.
But we went ahead and explored them and got everything out of them that we could get and without struggling,
Mhm.
no one
Yeah.
wants to struggle.
I was just listening to one of everyone's favorite songs, American Pie by Don McLean, and apparently that's the longest song ever played on AM radio. Like, because
Yeah,
it
it was
wasn't a
one
3 minute
of
song, it
those.
was like 9 minutes or something. I was like,
Yeah, I'm sure it was one of those that it was like uh, the Zeppelin tune. The guys, the jocks could put it on and then go use the bathroom, make call home, see how everything's going on, and then they knew it was going to be 9 minutes. There's
yeah.
a nice break. You can go have coffee. You could leave town and come back. It's still on.
Oh man.
This jockey's dream. Mm.
Yeah, right. This question I'm going to ask you now, a couple of people have had a tough time answering this. And looking back at your life and career, what advice would you give to your younger self now?
Hmm.
Mm.
Buy property. Something like that. Some because musicians don't think about those things, and you hopefully have people later on that are watching out for that kind of thing and making sure that you're not spending all your money all the time. But musicians don't really have much regard for money. Uh,
Yeah.
it's more about the instrument and what it sounds like and what it does for you and you know how close you are to it. When people are buying mandolins that are $250,000, um, you know, that is a real uh, you've really sunk some money into something. It's an investment that you have to keep your eye on it. I mean, the instrument trade goes up and down. One of the hardest businesses to be in the whole world is a music store, instrument stores. And uh, but it's those instruments sound that way. They sound great. That there's a reason that you pay that much money for an instrument like that. But it can get out of hand, but it soon levels itself.
So I guess what you're saying is if you can try to kind of prepare yourself for the financial future. I know a lot of guitarists, especially, like to buy guitars. Well, you might too, left and right. I mean, they just have so many of them, and then it's great, but you get to a point in your life where you're going to need retirement, you're going to need healthcare, all these things that, like you say, you're not thinking about, you're just playing.
Right. Yeah, you should be thinking about, yeah. Okay, so back to the original question, what would I tell my younger self would be to, yeah, it, treat this is a business. This is a business. This is not all fun. You know, if you want it to be fun, you have to take care of the business. That's what I would tell myself.
Yeah, good advice.
Not that I haven't. I have tried to do that, but I know that it's a hard for it's it's an up and down career kind of thing, and it's feast or famine. It's not as bad as it used to be. Bluegrass music, has made huge leaps in like January used to be the scariest month of the year. Not anymore. Just try to find a place to squeeze in, a
Yeah.
conversation with a friend. And for me, it's taken on. I've divided it into a pie. I'm in so many days I play with this band, so many days I play with this band, and it not all only keeps that cycle of the bands fresh and different for the audience. It keeps it different for me. So I'm not getting stuck in some kind of rut and we're just staying in one place, but always, it's finding new stuff and finding new, I mean, I found a strange chord the other day on the Dobro that I didn't know was there. I mean, all this time, and I just hit this combination of three notes, and it was like, really? All this time you've been
Wow.
right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just never ends. I mean, it's constant education.
Mhm.
Business.
Yeah. When I was talking to Dan Tominski about that, he said, when I was playing with Union Station, it was just like a job and we got paid and everything was fine. And now he says I'm just like another musician trying to make a living. I have to book gigs and go with my band. It's up, like you say, up and down, right? You never
Yeah,
know.
it is. I mean, I used to start, I'd have my band out there and it would just get up and run and, again and Alison go, okay, we're going to go out next year. So I would just stop it all
Mm.
and, tell everybody, I'm going back to my gig now and I'll be back and hopefully people can come back. It's just one of those things that's my job. If that comes up to me, that's my job. I want to do that because I love that sound. I love being part of that sound. And
Yeah.
I've put a lot into it. I've helped build that sound, so I have invested. So yeah, it's something I want to do. I mean, you know, we didn't all have the same. I guess we didn't all have the same way to look at it.
Mhm. When you're sitting around at home, do you ever just pick up the six-string guitar and play a tune, or like when you're
Yeah.
relaxing, what would you play if you just sat down and picked up your Martin? Just play a fiddle tune or a song you wrote or just anything?
I have a hard time playing a whole song on a guitar. I get bored and go to something else. It's like
Hmm.
red-haired boy to leather breeches or to cattle in the cane or something. Just keep going round and round and not very well. I'm not a very good guitar player. I'm a better dobro player than a guitar player. I figured the whole world had Tony and all these guitar players. They didn't need me to
Yeah.
play that instrument.
Yeah.
So, hmm.
I saw a video recently of you playing with Twisted Pine. They're one of my favorite bands. They've played up here quite a few times. Pretty funky band.
Yeah, yeah. And they
They're
had a
good.
guitar player the last time I played with them. They had a guitar player, and I thought that was a good move. I thought that was,
Hmm.
but yeah, I love that band too. It's different. It's quirky. It's Catherine's voice. Kathleen's voice. She's got such a good market corner there. And they're entertaining to me. It's just the whole thing. And Dan.
Played up here during COVID, and I guess the flute player from Canada couldn't get into the country, so they played as a trio: bass,
Oh,
Kathleen, and Dan. I
Yeah.
tell you, it was the best I ever heard them. There's the three of them. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, once you sometimes when you have to take up slack for somebody that's not there, it changes the dynamic of the band. And yeah, it does reshift things around and puts everybody on their toes, maybe a good way, in a very good way, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. You've played with so many people, obviously. Do you have any one musical performance that you're most proud of in terms of your, or just most memorable? Like I mean, you've played thousands of performances, but anyone stick out?
Uh, I played I played once uh at Carnegie Hall for on a rainforest benefit that was all Sting was the main act there, but I was playing with James Taylor. So we set up on one side of Sting, and then I forget who the other are. Brian Adams. Brian Adams was
Mhm.
the other, but there were all those three different bands that played that night, all set up on the same stage, and in Carnegie Hall, and then in walks uh, Tom Jones and Tina Turner.
Ooh.
And Dustin Hoffman is he's the host, of this
Mm.
thing. And it was like, what am I doing here? This is crazy. This is just nuts. But when I saw Tom, when I saw the Tom was out there and Tina at the same time, I had to go out and just play, just be part of the cacophony, that was
Mm.
going on out there, just so I could feel, so just so I could say I did it or did it, just so I did it. I don't want need to tell anybody. I just want to know I did it. Why pass up that opportunity?
Right. Wow.
And for Ray Charles, one time I was playing on a track. Um, and he didn't hear it because he didn't have headphones on going down. He was playing piano and he was facing Pig Robbins, who was this other blind Nashville stalwart piano player. And they were facing each other, no headphones, either one of them, both playing piano, and Ray was singing. And I took the solo on the song, but he didn't hear that going down. So he didn't hear that until we got in the control room. And he listened back and he said, what's that? And they said, that's a Dobro, Ray. And he said, oh, what's that? It's like I hear Ray Charles at Dobro crash course on that day.
That's
uh,
good.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah. Um, what was the nicest compliment you ever got as a musician? Do you remember anything that really like floated your boat for a long time from somebody, a hero or something?
No, I I don't really have one of those. I mean, I know that I do, that I'm not thinking of it right now, but there had to be somebody who said something that just, made it all worthwhile for me. Uh, I'm trying to think of, the other night, a friend of mine a guy named Paul Brady, who I've known forever, is this amazing Irish singer. We were on stage together, and I introduced him, and he said that I was his favorite musician, and that floored me. I'd never heard him say anything like that before, and that floored me. That was great. And okay, there was one other one that John Fogerty said I was his favorite musician,
Oh,
and I just went, what? Whoa! But yeah, that'll stick with you for a while. But it's like, is it good? Uh, I was taught early on. My dad would say, you're good. People are going to say you're good. Don't let that stuff go to your head. Don't let that go to your head. So when I hear things like that, or I read something like that, my dad's voice comes blasting in there. It's like, you know what? So what? You're just
Mhm.
you. You're just
Yeah.
you. And he said that. That's nice, but don't let that go to your head.
Mhm.
And I think that's been good. I think that's been a good thing for me.
Yeah. It's funny
Yeah.
because Fogerty is probably one of my, next to Tony Rice, probably my other musical hero. I always loved John Fogerty. I couldn't believe him how he sang and how he sounded in the songs he wrote. He was always just my top guy.
And he is that he is a sweet guy. He's a sweet guy, and he doesn't speak the way he sings. You would never know that that was him. The guy speaking was the guy singing on I seen a bad moon rising, you're just like, what? And but he's from Northern California and he has that accent. But he came in and we did a song together on one of my records a while back, and he came in and he had it pitched lower, the song pitched lower, and I said, John, we need to get this thing up because I need for people to know who you are.
Huh.
And as soon as we took it up like two steps, there was John Fogerty, It was just
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful. And the John, I remember taking the record Green River to school with me when
Mhm.
I in about the fifth grade or something, and saying, "Look, I'm going to play with these guys someday," because he was standing with a Dobro on the cover of that record on Green
Mm,
River, and
I remember.
they bring my Dobro into show and tell class before. And a fellow told me, one of my buddies from high school, he said, "I remember you brought your Dobro to school, and the teacher gave you a C."
Oh man, that's funny.
uh, so
Yeah. Because I was away at school in high school for a couple of years, and one of my mates on the floor was this guy, Jim Goldman from Indiana, and he had Creedence, and I had never heard Creedence. So we used to play it in the dorms at night, and I said, "Man, that guy is a swamp guy from Louisiana. How does he?" I had
yeah,
no idea he was from California. I thought he was like this bio dude. I
yeah.
couldn't believe the voice and the song subjects, and it was just I couldn't even understand half the lyrics, but it was like, oh my God, how did this guy sound like this? And I realized later he was not at all a Bayou guy.
Not at all.
I know, that's crazy.
But yeah, he's I went out to one of his birthday parties a few years ago, and I had just done a deal with Gibson guitars to make a Dobro for me, sort of a signature model guitar, and it wasn't very good, but I had one that they had made a 13 fret neck, but I think by mistake, probably. I'm not sure how it got that way, but
Oh
I
man.
gave it to Fogerty. I took it out there to give it to him for his birthday, and he and I have the same birthday, so I'm
Oh,
out there. And the guy that was driving the car that was taking me around was a little late getting there, and all these people were on the lawn, and I handed the guitar out, and I handed it to Bruce Springsteen. That's who his friends and neighbors are. John's is, and then I said, "Thanks, thanks, boss." He said, "It's cool, Jerry." That's was like freak out again, and then then we waited for him to show up, for Fogerty to show up. So it was a good. He's a good guy. Yeah,
yeah.
he made some
Yeah.
good.
Hmm. Nice stories. Did you ever imagine that you personally would be one of the quote elder statesmen of bluegrass? I'm just thinking about how time goes by.
Isn't that crazy? Uh, I'd never thought about it before, but I have been thinking about it, since they told me that I was in the Hall of Fame. I have thought about that, about being one of those guys.
Hmm.
Hey, Jimmy. Um, uh, but I have thought about that as we, you know, Sam and as my peers and my buddies have started finding themselves in this honored room, you know, and thought about it that way. And it's not setting up right. You know, I have to think about that one for a long time before I'll feel that way. I'm just glad that I'm still uh in their minds, you know, to come to play on their records too.
Right.
And the new bunch, the new group. And it was just amazing. I just have this theory that about every 20 years there is a renaissance period, you know, in all musics that it just somebody pops up that just changes everything. And
Yeah.
it's happened. It's happening right now. And it happened, you know, 25 years ago, 20 years ago when Chris Thile came in, you know, or somebody like that. And in the 25 years before that was when Ricky and Sam and Bela and I came in. So I think you can try to kind of spread it out. That's 80 years. That's too far. But not that long ago.
Yeah.
But it just every once in a while, it just kind of all there's a Renaissance period and it all reshapes itself.
Yeah. Do you want to take a little break and talk to
Yeah,
your friend?
just for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pause it to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So we're good.
I just we recently found some recordings that Boone Creek made when we recorded our first record in Nashville, uh, our first record, and we did that record, finished that record, but we kept recording because uh, Wes Golding was writing so much stuff, and we just kept going. And Rounder said, "Yeah, keep going. Let's see what happens." And we we recorded. We had drums. We it was like full band. I mean, even I found the saxophones and everything. Uh, but those tapes were stolen by the engineer and have been missing since 1977, but were found about 5 years ago and baked and took the mold off of it. They were terrible in terrible shape, but they've been in the science oven now. So they're off and they were able to pull two mixes off of them. But I think I found some more today. And I wasn't really looking for it. I was just making sure this cassette machine played and it worked, and I found something that nobody's heard since then.
Nice.
But
Wow.
but Rounder, or not Rounder, but the original Rounder founders are putting their re-releasing the Boone Creek record with these four new tracks on there that haven't been heard even by any of us since we cut them.
Wow.
So we just recently found them.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very 70s though, I have to warn you. They're very 70s. Lots of major sevenths.
Yeah. Um, so is there anyone in the history of music that you would have enjoyed playing with, specifically, before your time?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would have loved to have been in a jam session with Stefan Grappelli and Django Reinhardt. I can't help it. I know that's probably a pretty common choice, but that was like a musical mecca, you know. It just never happened again. They were a combination of guys who couldn't have been more different, those two fellows, but they just sounded like that. And Ricky Skaggs and I used to just sit and listen to that stuff and just marvel and just go like, how do you do that? How do you do that? And until we got close, and then we decided to play some other kind of music. But that would be it for me. And there's an I've I this is crazy, but Peter Gabriel is somebody that I would love to do something with, but I know my window's closing, but if that happens, I'll be happy. If that happens, if I get to record with them in some way before it's over for us, I'd be very happy about that.
My friend loves him. I think he has a new album out of new songs, which he still sounds amazing, just like he always did. It's incredible.
He's got such a range, and he has such a great musical mind, and he's just one of those people that has, come across, that I've been listening to for years, but have never met, have never gotten in close to, and don't know how I would meet him. But I guess there's a way. But that's just one of those things. I mean, I've met they say don't meet your heroes, Well, most most of my heroes that I've met have been just that. They've been great guys. I think that the legends and the people who stick around, they're all pretty good people. They're good people. They're fair people. Uh, and Mac Wiseman was one of the coolest dudes that ever walked the planet, and most knowledgeable. I wish more people could have had the conversations that I've had with him, just about the music business and about what it was like to travel back then, and what he did with Monroe and all the things that Mac was a fountain of information, untapped, I think. And Eddie Adcock's the same way. Eddie Adcock is like that too. It's just most people might not know that, but and they're they're just people that have been really important to bluegrass music and all kinds of music, and just sort of sliding away. But people that I'm glad that I've met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only have two more questions, and one is there anything that people would be surprised to learn about you or know about you? Like, do you have a side or a secret or a passion that nobody would even realize?
I wish I did.
This one stumped Michael Cleveland completely. He said, "No, no, I do not. I'm not that interesting. I just like to play music, and that's it."
I love to fish, but I don't get to fish as often as I wish I could. And
Mm.
I like thinking about it, and that's about as far as I get usually. But I don't have any quirky, weird things and hopefully no skeletons. Um, that's the reason I've never joined 23andMe.
Yeah, you might be related to Adolf Hitler or something you don't want to find out about.
Well, yeah, you don't want to know. You just don't want to know. Stay
Do you
away.
ever take a week off from music and go on vacation somewhere? Has that ever happened to you recently, or are you just too busy all the time to do that?
We have to plan our vacations way out there, and we have to protect them, because that's always when the $1 million call comes in, is
Mm-hmm.
when you've made this big plan.
Yeah.
But yes, we do. We take Jill and I take vacations. I mean, this last thing I just did was work, but we just took off, and went to the UK and Ireland, and we're all over the place, and had a good time. She got sick for about 3 days and missed Cambridge Folk Festival, but uh, it's a hard life. It's a hard life traveling around, But to take a vacation, it takes me 2 weeks to have a vacation, because it takes me the first week to stop,
Mm.
to put the brakes on and stop. And it takes me in the second week, I finally realize that I can relax, and not do business, not make calls, don't tell anybody to do, don't delegate something, and then have to check on it, or you know, just disappear. Yeah,
Mm.
just tell everybody you're leaving and you'll be back on this day.
Yeah. It gets harder with a cell phone. I remember traveling with my wife when we were younger, and we would just go to say Italy, there were no phones. It was just you just travel and you go and knock on a hotel door. It was so simple. Nobody could get in touch with you until you got back. I mean, somebody died, you would find out when you got home. That
Yeah.
was it. And
Yeah.
now, if you're tempted to always like be in touch with home.
It's an
Just,
instant world.
yeah,
I mean, something happens, everybody knows all over the world
yeah,
now. And,
yeah.
and I don't know if I don't think that's good. I think you need time to think about it,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
address it then.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
not much time to think about anything these days. It's everything is instant.
yeah,
There's not
yeah,
much thinking going on
I know.
sometimes.
And even the internet for the young musicians, it's going to speed up. It's going to speed everything up. Uh, People are going to learn faster because there's more available,
Mm,
like just at the tap of a button. You can learn Chris Thiele's solo,
hmm. Yeah, you can learn it, right? If you can play it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can listen, if you can hear it, you can learn it. Yeah.
Well, that leads me to my last question. And I think the internet has been great in one sense that when bands come to town, they can always find the best food in town. And
Mm.
I asked Mike Cleveland, I said, when you're on the road, do you have a favorite kind of food that you search out? And he said, oh, yeah, pizza. I love pizza. I said, have you ever been to New Haven for pizza? He says, no, I just heard about New Haven pizza because we consider it the best in the world. Sally's Pizza in New Haven is world renowned. Is
Okay.
there any particular kind of food that you always search out or when you're traveling?
I love I love Indian food and I love Thai food.
Yeah.
And I keep a log of restaurants. I mean, if I'm in with a band, or if I'm with a bunch of guys, and I say we should go to this restaurant while we're in this town, they believe me, and
Yeah.
I won't steer you wrong on that kind
Yeah.
of. But
That's
I've traveled enough, I've been to enough places. I can, and there are ways to bookmark them. If you're
mhm.
there have been places like we were just going to pass by, go 40 miles out of the way to hit a barbecue joint, and done that. And and there, or just some strange, you're not going to find anywhere food, but I'm my palate, I'm pretty open to just about anything. Um, but pizza, no.
Yeah.
Michael, yeah, I know Michael likes his pizzas. Uh, and he had a certain brand of potato chips too that he couldn't do without. Uh, what were they called? Chippos, or I can't remember what they were called. You have to ask Michael, but he kept bringing those up all the time.
Yeah. That's funny. Is My daughter is a vegan and a very good cook. She's 16, but she eats potato chips like it's going out of style. I don't know. That's her favorite snack food is
Potatoes.
potato chips. Oh my God. Yeah.
Huh.
They're vegan, but I mean, she just eats all types of them. That's
Potato chips are a really good thing in the studio for singers.
did not.
They keep your throat from drying out, and
Hmm.
and the grease or oil or whatever it is on there uh helps, you know lubes up your throat a little bit, keeps that moving, keeps things moving. Potato chips,
Right.
yeah. Dolly Parton was the first person I saw do that.
Wow.
But then since then I've seen lots of singers do that. So tell your daughter that she must have a singing career in store.
Uh, Not so far, but you never know. You never know. So, anything you'd like to add before we close off here? We've covered a lot of stuff. There's a million things I got to ask you, but anything you want to throw out there
Well,
about your band or your tours and stuff, or anything? Or
my tours are infinity. My tours will go on and on and on. Uh, we are going out and doing ACUS Union Station gigs next year. We'll release a record in March, and we're going to tour from the end of April to the end of September. I think, and then do the same thing the next year, release another record. So there's some plans out there for us to go back out again. So I'm excited about that. It's and this, just like right, but right now it's like this, my record coming out is keeping me really busy, and the Hall of Fame thing is just blowing my mind. So I can't think too far down the road at this point with any certainty.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I've enjoyed talking, though. It's been great.
Well, thank you, Jerry. It's been nice talking with you too, and good luck with all your projects. And maybe we'll see you sometime up here in Connecticut down the road. You never know.
I'll try to make it in there. I'll try to make it in there to Guitar Town.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording now, and I'm stopping it right now.
I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.